So today we're going to talk about what I like to call Suffocation Man. Online it's sometimes called SOS Man. The reason it's called SOS Man is not because, it makes the other team cry for help, although that is an interesting way to think about it, but because there's a lot of principles that go into the defense that can be called, or the first letters of which are SOS. So I think their on-ball defense, you're supposed to remember as set, on, and some other or something like that. And then they have different rules for off-ball defense, and everything is SOS. But regardless, I'm going to call it Suffocation Man probably, or SOS, but we're not going to be going into that much specifics because that's way too detailed for, us possibly only running this for 1 or 2 games in an intramural setting. I'm not going to, be teaching 100 fundamentals, obviously. I don't think you guys want to learn 100 fundamentals, nor would I. So the idea of this defense is that it's kind of the opposite of the pack line defense, and hopefully by the time I'm showing you this video we've already done the pack line, so you know what I mean when I say that. But the pack line is excellent against teams that are poor outside shooters or teams that only have 1 or 2 good players, because you're packing the paint and you're saying you're going to have to swing it around to beat us, you're going to have to beat us as a team. This defense does the exact opposite. And what it says is, if you have any good shooters, they will never get an open look. You're never going to shoot a 3, basically. And if you're going to try and beat us with passing or as a team, that's not going to work either. What we want to do is we want to force you to slow it down and play one-on-one ball, maybe post it up if necessary. And yeah, so we're going to say we're going to take it back to like the dead ball era. It's going to be like 90s basketball where you're just going to have your best player going one-on-one with our best player, and we think our guys are going to win. We're going to say we don't think you have any Michael Jordans on your team. So basically the general idea is that we're going to deny passes around the perimeter, and we're going to switch heavily to make sure that we can always stay in position. So one of the important things to keep in mind here is that every single player needs to really be trying their ass off in man-to-man defense, because there's going to be almost no help. And since we're switching a lot, there might end up with some mismatches. So, everybody on the floor has to be trying pretty hard. So let's start with talking about the on-ball defense. So we want to be really tight in this situation. Not like I'm going to get so close to you that you can walk by me, because that would be a problem, because there's not a lot of help defense. So let's talk about a triple threat situation, when they haven't passed it yet. So let's say this guy at the top has the ball here. You want to get close to him, and what I want you to do is to be sort of hand guarding the ball, and that means like, generally what you do is you kind of open up your hips some way. So let's say he's holding this ball on his right side here, facing that way. So his right, your left. Then you want to kind of angle your body so that your left side's a little closer to the ball, and you're sticking your hand out. And you're putting the hand, in this case, your left hand, or the hand closer to the ball, like inches away from it, and swiping at it if you can. But just, so if he raises the ball up a little bit, your hand goes a little bit up. So you're always a couple of inches away in front of it. And this doesn't mean you're not going to get chest to chest with him or anything like that. But I just want your hand right there so that he's like, okay, if I'm going up for a shot or a pass, it's going to get knocked away immediately. And since your hips are a little open, he's probably going to try and drive to one side, which is probably his weak side, because generally players hold it on the side that they're stronger, because obviously, if you're a lefty, or in this case, if you're a righty, you're going to hold the ball on your right so you can shoot it from your right. So you're sort of forcing him to his offhand here. But yeah, you want to get close on the side that he has the ball and get your hand right in front of it so that he feels like he can't really shoot it or pass it very well. So we want to force them to drive in these scenarios. We want to force somebody to try and beat you off the dribble, as opposed to just like having all day to sit around back there. Also, if somebody has the ball, we're going to want to force them baseline instead of middle, because middle, it's a lot easier to make passes and harder to make rotations. So pack line was weird in that we didn't do that, but as in most defenses, you do want to force baseline. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into the off-ball D. So one thing that's important is, if you feel like for some reason you can't guard somebody, then I don't want you to get super close to him. because there's not a lot of help behind you. So if you're like, oh my gosh, this guy is a ball handling wizard and I just got switched on him, or maybe he's just really strong and he's going to drive right through my chest, then, you know, don't bother, or you just think he'll blow by you, then don't press him, because it'll be an easy basket. So in that scenario, let me know if that happens, because we might be running the wrong defense, or if you can switch on to somebody else next possession and say, hey, can you take this guy? I don't think I can guard him, or something. If you get switched on to a guy like that, maybe we'll have a word or something, or maybe you'll just be like, yell out for some help or something like that, to let the other team know, like, this guy might be about to drive, or not to let the other team, but let the rest of our team know that. So yeah, but those are the general ideas, that if you're on the ball, you want to get pretty close to him and get your hand right up against the ball, so he's got to put it on the floor and drive, and then, you'll be there and you're going to say, all right, now we're playing. So off ball D, we're going to talk about one pass away and then more than one pass away. So if you're one pass away, you deny the ball, which, you deny the pass completely. So there's a couple ways you can do that. What some people do, and what we will do very rarely, because I don't think it's as effective, is they will stand, I don't have anything that looks like an arrow here. They will stand sort of between the guy and the ball, and they'll face the man here. So in this case, this blue guy is facing his man, and they'll stick their hand out into the passing lane this way. So in this case, your right hand would be sort of out and down, like, I guess you can't really see my hand very well, but you would sticking your right hand out this way, thumb down, so that your palm is facing the guy, and your foot's also sort of in the passing lane. So you're saying, all right, you're not going to get an easy bounce pass through. You're not going to throw a chest pass because my hand is out here. You might be able to lob it over the top, but I'm pretty close to him, and odds are I'm going to come over there and knock it away, so that makes it a difficult pass. The idea behind this is that even if you drive this way, you're sort of in position to give a little bit of dig help. But you want to be careful with these, because you kind of have to play a foot or two down. You can't play in a perfect line between man and ball like this, because then he'll just beat you back door every time. So you got to play down a little bit, and they can kind of throw it to the outside shoulder. It's not my favorite way of doing it. We'll talk about it a little bit more in a minute, like I said. So here's the way I prefer to do it. I prefer for you to be directly on the guy, but sort of on his inside shoulder. And what that means is, so in this case, your hand that's away from the ball. So let's say you're this guy in this situation. So your left hand on this side, you want on him in some way, like literally on the guy's chest or his hip. So you're pushing against him, sort of the same way you would as if this guy was posting up. You'd have sort of one hand on him, and then the other hand in the passing lane. So in this case, your right hand will be stretching over his chest, same thing where, palm facing the ball. And you're just saying, I don't care that you're 30 feet from the basket. You're going to have to chuck the ball like out here, and he's going to have to sprint and go get it. And I'm still going to try and steal it if you do. I'm not making anything easy on you. The added benefit of this is it's almost impossible to get beat back door, because if he starts cutting, he has to run through your left hand in this scenario. So you can kind of get away with a little push off of him there to hold him back a little bit. So you always know exactly where he is, and then you can be looking over your shoulder a little easily, without worrying, oh, I got to look here, make sure that my guy's not cutting, but the ball's not coming. So this is a little easier to keep track of your man as well. Yeah, so I think it's easier to keep track of your man this way. It gives a little less help, but it's better for the off-ball defense. So generally, what I want you to do with this is, no matter where your guy is, you keep your hand on him, basically. And we'll talk about switching in a little bit, but like if he starts running, I don't care where, you're pretty much keeping your hand on him. The only time that you'll take it off is if somebody goes like half court, then you can kind of play that backwards defense. Like, I'm still going to make this pass very difficult. I'm still facing my man instead of the ball. Okay, you don't even need to be that far. If they go all the way out here, you can let them. You can be like, okay, whatever. But like, if they're saying like, oh, maybe they're in this kind of setup where they got their guys like 5 feet beyond the arc. I'm just going to put some other people out here for now. This guy's pressing up over here. Then maybe you're going to say, okay, I don't need to literally hug this guy out here. I might play like here. because that's still, you know, a pretty difficult pass to make, but I'm also a little closer if I need to make some rotations. So, 2 passes away. So in this case, like I said, you know, we're denying ball here because this is 1 pass away, and we're denying it here just slightly differently. We can even say that they're hugging for the sake of argument. Even here, we're kind of trying to deny. 2 passes away, you can gap a bit. So especially like this, if you're on opposite sides of the court, if he was, you know, maybe up top and this guy's here, now that's a closer 2 passes away. But like if you're on the other side of the court, like if it's corner to corner or something like that, then you can gap a bit. So since drives are easier than they are in the pack line defense, that's why we still want a little bit of gap. You know, we can't just hug everybody, because if this guy gets blown by, especially if, you know, this dude's up top or something, then as soon as somebody gets beat, there's literally no help defense at all. So we want a little bit of gap penetration, at least from somebody. So basically the rule of thumb that you want to follow for this is, when we ran the pack line, what we said was get as far away as possible from your man while still recovering to him. Like in the sense of like, if I'm all the way out here and there's a pass there, then I can get back and he can't get a wide open 3. What I want here is to say, stay as far away from your man as possible while still denying the pass, ideally. So what that means is, like, if I'm here, that pass can be made. Not too difficult. I'll be able to cover it, but it'll get there easily. But if I'm playing, like, well, let's say 5 or 6 feet off him, that pass can't be made. So I got to sort of find the balance where I think if they throw it over here, it's going to be a lob and it's probably going to go out of bounds, or I'm going to steal it. That's kind of the distance you want. So I think that you understand what I'm saying there. Originally, I had this written down as saying stay as close to him as you can while still rotating over, but I don't really like that saying. It's kind of similar to this. But you never want to say stay as close to someone as possible, because generally you want to err on the side of being as far away as possible. So be as far away as possible while still being able to deny the pass. Of course, if there's any kind of dribble penetration, like if somebody gets in here, I don't want you to be like, well, my job is to deny the pass, so I guess that's just a free 2 points, because that's stupid. So normal rotation rules, like we talked about at the beginning in the very first video, still apply. So in this case, you know, the lowest man's still going to rotate over, and this guy's going to zone up, and obviously now he's not going to be able to deny the pass either, but that's okay. You know, the sort of press that we're running has been broken, so you go back to normal man-to-man principles and rotations and X-outs and all that good stuff. So let's talk about switching, because that's something that's important in this scheme. So by default, switch all screens on contact. And what that means is, let me set up a little pick and roll scenario here. And this goes for off-ball screens too. But let's say as soon as you feel yourself being screened, you want to grab the person that's screening you and get underneath them, just like you were fighting to get under a post-up, because I don't want any free rolls to the basket, because like I said, you know, our help might be a little hard to come by. Because, you know, this guy is probably the only one that's really in a help situation here. Maybe this guy's denying a little bit. So, like, as soon as this guy comes up and sets a screen, this guy, of course, is following him with a hand on his back or his chest or whatever. So he's literally touching the guy until the point where he sees these two make contact, at which point this guy sort of grabs him a little bit. They start wrestling a little bit and gets underneath him. Let me change the color of this to be so the big guy is black. That sounded racial. That's obviously not what I meant. I just used the black and blue. These are the only 4 colors I have. So he comes up, sets a screen. Our big man here wants to be connected to red as long as he can. And then as soon as that screen is set, now he's coming up, and this is a switch scenario, assuming the guy's coming over the screen, of course. And now he's playing man defense on this guy, whereas the guard is fighting to get underneath. And saying, okay, good, now we've done it. And, you know, if it's a lazy screen and they pop out, good. So you keep your hand on his chest, and then as soon as he's away from the ball and out of the play, you're doing the same denial that we talked about. And this is the switch. So That's the general idea. Switch all screens on contact. The same goes with off ball. So as soon as you have a guy, like let's say you're sort of the weak side guy that's gapping a little bit, once he starts, let's say these guys are like looking like they're going to do a back screen or something away from the ball, you do kind of want to get closer to your guy when you see this happening, because you don't want to be like just kind of standing out here and letting whatever happen, and maybe this guy gets picked and there's something crazy going on. Let me switch this out for black again so that we can see a little more clearly what I'm saying. So what you want to do is, if you see this sort of stuff coming on, you want to get a little closer to your guy again. Maybe you want to get hand on chest again. And then again, like let's say it's a back screen like this, or actually let's say it's a down screen. So the guard is setting a screen for somebody coming up out of the corner. Again, you're keeping your hand on him as he's getting there up until the point where you feel the contact on you. And then, you call out the switch, or whoever calls out the switch. Usually the person, so in this case, it would normally be the blue guy that's calling it out. Whoever's man is setting the screen normally calls it out because they can see both. So yeah, but either of you can call out a screen, you call out switch, and then you fight to get under this guy, and after he comes up, they take them. And then, when necessary, you can gap again a little bit, but still deny the passes there. So, let's talk about a pick and roll scenario up top again or something like that. If somebody wants, they can call out like, oh, I'm going to stay over this. Like, let's say this guy's kind of jogging over to set like a shitty screen. And maybe this is our best defender and this is their best offensive player. Maybe he's just like, I'm going over this, and he just takes control and follows him over it and whatever. And that's done. So the general idea is to switch, but we don't always have to. You do have to be careful about slips. So like, let's say off ball or something. Let's say these guys are both just completely hugging their men. And as this guy's jogging over here, blue says, okay, well, we're about to switch, so let me start to get on this high side. If he never makes contact with black here, then black's never going to notice switch onto him, even if you're calling out switch. Because he's going to be waiting for that screen to be set to switch. So this could be an easy backdoor cut. Let me move this guy out of the way. And this isn't that hard of a pass to make. It's a little better because we have this guy with the blue hand guarding the ball and making it a little tougher to make those sorts of passes. Well, really any passes or shots. But it's still not too hard to do. So we need to be careful with that. And that's why, in this case, if you're blue, you can't get up too high too early. And you also need to be communicating with black pretty well. So, you're saying like, down screen coming or something like that. So black's sort of keeping an eye on it. And then maybe if you're kind of starting to get on the high side and at the last second your guy slips, maybe you say, stay. And, as you go with your guy because you're watching it. So you just got to keep your head on a swivel out there. So let's talk very briefly about scram switches. We talked about these a little bit, but we didn't really recommend them too highly in the last video. So let's say that we get a post mismatch, for example. So let's say this is what the defense is set up like. Let's say these are our kind of bigger guys, and they're guarding the kind of bigger guys on the other team. Let's say there's a pick and roll up top. It's a pretty normal pick and roll. These guys end up switching. And now, blue does a good job fighting to get under red, but red manages to start pushing him down and down and down, and is getting good post position on this small guy because this is one of their bigger guys now that we've switched. What we might want to do here is a scram switch, which means switching off ball. So maybe black comes flying over and he says, and he tells this guy, you're going to have to zone up the weak side for a second. And he comes over here and he says, I'm going to take this guy. You go get on to my guy. So that's one of the things where communication matters a lot, because you need to do those sorts of things before the pass gets thrown. And maybe as black is running over, or maybe they throw the pass pretty quick, or he catches it up here and starts backing the small guy down. So maybe, our other big guy here is basically sending a double, and that's at his discretion to say, I don't think the small guy can handle it. He's going to get backed all the way under the basket. And then, you do a quick double, and as soon as the pass is made, or as soon as black fully gets in front of him, the big, then the guard, will scramble back out. And then it's an X-out situation where he zones them up let's say there's a pass made to the corner, he goes there, the other guard will rotate back up, and now we've completely neutered that. So in general with post-ups, what I'd say is that post-ups are kind of hard to deny. So you're going to want to use the same sort of stuff that we talked about in the pack line. So in the sense of like, if they want to catch it all the way up here, don't try and deny that, because if you try to deny the pass up top, they're just going to throw it to the basket, and that's too easy. But the same sort of thing I said on the perimeter kind of applies here, where you kind of want to get on sort of on the inside of them if you can. You don't want to give up a straight line pass if it was like this. Hopefully, if he's hand denying the ball well, that won't even happen. But you want to kind of get on one side, get your hand in the passing lane, push him out to the side, and hopefully make him catch it going away down here. So that, you know, if he jumps down there to catch it, that's okay. He's kind of trapped down by the baseline. And you don't need to really dig or anything. Just take away any passes. So, yeah, so the post-ups, you know, pretty much the same general rules, except we don't necessarily need to double everything. We'd rather take away the passes and say, all right, let's see what you got. Obviously, if they have a guy that's like 6'6" or something, maybe we'll switch it up. But that's the general idea, that we're going to try and make one guy beat us. So with this, let me switch these. I don't need big guys anymore. We can also run a pretty good full court press. So the general idea, and this is probably the first time I've done anything on the full court, is just to force them to catch it in the corners and then trap it down there. So if we run a full court press or something, then what we're going to do is I'm just going to put players up here randomly. Honestly, the rules are almost identical. It's just a slightly different application, which means for these guys, you want to be as far away from them as possible while still denying the pass. But in a full court situation, that's hard, because if I say, okay, well, I don't think he could pass it right to here without it getting stolen, that's probably true. But if he just throws it to the basket, this guy's going to beat him there, and that's probably a bucket. So you do need to kind of stay a little closer. So let's even say that you're basically, before the ball is passed in, at least you're pretty much going to stay connected to your man. So what you want to do in these situations is basically, if you're one of these guys who has somebody coming down, you want to push them towards the corner. So that when they're catching the ball, their momentum's taking them down into one of the corners, ideally. If somebody catches the ball in the middle, it's not great because it's very hard to trap the middle. So if you're this guy who's covering the inbounder, you want to play on the middle side. So you want to basically be making it so it's very difficult to pass here, but that this pass or this pass is open, ideally into the short corner. So you don't have to be like this, because that would give up a pass here, but you want to take away the middle, but make it harder to go that way than this way. So in this situation, if the ball does enter the corner, hopefully what happens is, you know, your guy's trying to stand here, but you're right on him, you know, and you've got your hand kind of in the passing lane. So he says, all right, I got to run down here to get open. The ball is passed there, and here's what we're doing. Obviously, you're running with him. You're immediately on his back and trapping him. And now the inbounder comes to trap as well. The easiest thing to do here is for him to pass it right back to this guy. So we're going to have a sort of zone-up action where the next closest guy down does some of this. And then these guys are going to have to figure out a way to sort of zone up everybody else. And we're probably going to be playing kind of aggressive. So, like, in this scenario, you know, maybe a pass all the way down here is open, or maybe he thinks I can fit this towards the basket. But as long as this guy's doubled, you can be pretty aggressive, because odds are he's not making a dime pass down here, throwing it over his head through a double team, you know. He's probably looking for a quick pass, so you can sort of still be between your guy and the basket a bit. Yeah, it's just tricky because, like, in this scenario, you've got three guys kind of defending four, and really two defending three, because this is almost like man at this point. So let's say they managed to get a quick bounce pass back here. What we would probably do in this sort of situation is the double would kind of come here. So this guy again, actually, let me use black, where this guy was the one that originally was covering the passer in. So he came over here to trap. Now he's going to come back here and trap again. Now this guy's going to come down a little more, and we've got a little 1-on-2 going on back here. But again, And like, let's say that maybe the double team isn't split or anything, but let's say this guy manages to dribble out of it. All right, now we're out of it. You know, we're going back. So maybe this guy's got to start dropping back so he can take him, and black will have to recover to this guy coming out here. And then we're going to say, okay, the trap got beaten. But as long as the ball's in the backcourt, we can kind of keep trapping it, unless it gets to the middle. So, like, let's say there's a situation like, let's set it up again and say, we did a good job kind of forcing this guy down into the corner, but this dude makes a nice juke here and comes out, and he kind of catches it in the middle of the floor. We don't deny it very well. There's really no point in trapping that. I mean, you can kind of try and get a cheeky one from behind or something like that, but, you know, let's say he bounces it back and now this guy's got the ball over here. There's really no point in trapping this because it's just too wide open at this point. So you got to know when the trap's beaten, and, you know, somebody on the team's got to be yelling, get back, you know, it's been broken or whatever. So, yeah, so the general idea is force players to the corners and trap them if they catch it there, and then everyone else deny any easy passes or zone up as necessary, which are kind of the same principles in the half court. One brief thing I want to tack on here that I didn't really mention is, let's go back to a half court setting for a minute. Let me get my blue cube back. Sometimes it's useful to top lock, which we'll sort of be doing anyway, and what that means is, like, if you see a guy coming off a screen, and let's even say it's your guy, if we weren't switching, you would want to, like, get on the top side of him so that he can't come off a screen. So, yeah, let's say it's a down screen like this. You'd want to prevent him, like, meet him on the high side so they can't catch any screens going here. We won't really be doing that, but we'll be sort of de facto doing that with the switches, because as soon as this screen is made, you're jumping out here and you're saying, nope, no passes there. But for on-ball screens, a similar thing to top locking is, and why I like this sort of defense is, if you've got your hand on your chest here, if this guy starts coming over here, like he wants to set a screen, what you can do is then sort of shift into that other defense where you're putting your ball almost completely between them. And I want you to just push this guy away from even setting a screen, because half the time the kids in our league will not even bother trying. Like, if they are like, you know, let's even say it's a big guy sitting down the post and, or, you know, coming from the wing. This works better on the wing because if it's from the post, you don't want to completely get between them because of that over-the-top pass, like I said. But if some guy's sort of casually coming from, like, the mid post or whatever, and he's saying, like, oh, I'm going to come set a screen, if you just get between him and the guy that he's supposed to be screening and just push him away and say, no, you're literally going to have to move me like an offensive lineman if you want to go set a screen, they're just going to give up half the time. And if they don't, then that's fine. Like, if you can see that you're getting close to him, you don't want to let him push you all the way into setting a pick on your own guy, because that's a disaster where they're just going to score. You know, like, if he keeps pushing through you, you know, don't get a tech or anything. Just do the normal thing. Get on the, you know, kind of let him go through you. Get on the other side of him, and then it's a contact screen, and you're switching again. So that's one good way to help prevent some of those switches from even happening in the first place, because we don't want a situation like the sort of the offense the Rockets run where they'll just get switch after switch after switch until they get the matchup that they want. So this is a good way to prevent those on-ball screens from even happening in the first place, is by just saying, I'm not even going to let you set a screen. It's very aggressive. So let's go back and just kind of think about the overall principles of the defense. So we're going to switch almost every screen because we're playing so tightly that we don't want to give up any easy backdoor cuts or anything with miscommunication. So we switch everything on contact. Off ball, if you're, you know, on ball, I want you with your hand where the ball is to prevent any passes or shots and force a drive. Off ball, you're denying the ball, one pass away, and two passes away, you're still denying the ball, but you can be slightly gapped in case you need to rotate. The idea of the entire defense is to beat teams that don't have any particularly great players, because we play a lot of teams or that have gotten really hot from deep, because there's a lot of teams that will play where none of their players are incredible, but they play well together and they're all good. Players like myself that are competent, we're not going to take over a game, but, you know, maybe some guy drives a little bit, creates a little crack in dishes. Now this guy drives a little bit, creates a bigger crack. and dishes. What we're doing is we're saying you will not be able to do that against us. You need one guy to start and finish the play, and he will get no help from the rest of your team. He's going to have to go mano-a-mano with our guys, grind it out, and see if he can create something by himself, and we're suffocating any possible help he has. If somebody tries to set a screen for him, we don't let them. If he tries to drive and finds himself stuck and then he wants to pass it out, there are no passes available. If he just wants to stand on the perimeter and swing it and hope that that moves the defense, he can't even do that. He's got to chuck crazy passes all the way across the court and just hope that they can even get through. And even if his guy catches it, then we've got the exact same thing on them. So it's just pressure, pressure, pressure. They never get a second to breathe, and I don't think most of the guys that we play can handle that. So I think that's everything for the suffocation man, like I called it. So yeah.